tell us your name and business name.
Sure. My name is Guido and I'm from Innate Furniture.
Brilliant. Why did you start the business?
Started the business, well, that was pretty much a happy accident, I suppose. It was a hobby, backyard hobby, making furniture. And during lockdown, we put it online and it took off by itself.
Oh, really? And did you see that? Was it like a steady, like, curve up, or was it just like straight up in the fact that people really enjoyed it and liked what you were popping out?
Yeah, it was pretty much straight up. It was actually a really slow incline because it was literally a hobby. Mm-hmm. We'd make tables on the old Sunday afternoon in the backyard with a couple of tools, just over a beer, and maybe like once a month would make an item, and truly just to enjoy it, sell on Trade Me for a few $100 for a friend, whatever it might be. But always definitely had a little bit of the entrepreneurial aspect of being like, oh, if we did this at scale, how would we systemize it, or how would we do things efficiently? What timbers would we use? What natural oils? Like, definitely purpose-driven, even as a hobby. Yeah. But that was still like very, very much in the early stages. It was definitely because we were stuck in lockdown and we're like, okay, we'll do our hobby, and made a couple of items quite quickly. Took photos, put it online, and I suppose the whole country was at home as well, maybe looking at their furniture, thinking they could do with something else. But either way, I think it was partially by chance, but it ended up, over only a couple of weeks, we just had thousands of followers and a whole bunch of orders without a workshop, and heading into winter, all we had was a couple of hand tools, so that was actually pretty daunting, to be honest, to suddenly have to be providing families across the country with a beautiful prize dining table that we're supposed to make without a workshop, and the winter is coming. So,
yeah. How did you even execute that? Like, what was your first steps to being able to do that? Going from the garden and producing stuff in there, was it in a shed to start off with, or was it just literally out in the garden?
It was literally out in the garden, yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, we did. There was like a little gazebo, so occasionally we would run an extension cord to the gazebo and like set up a little area there. But it was like with $40 little hand power tools, and with scrap wood, and just completely at our own pace. And so that worked completely fine. Until you suddenly have a whole bunch of orders to fulfill and the weather's turning bad. So yeah, we got a little single car garage, and that got us started.
Nice, yeah, no. So yeah, the execution was you moved on to that single car garage and just kept on working in there. And then did you keep progressing up, buying better tools, better equipment?
Yeah, pretty much. I think off the bat we got a couple of better tools. We're like, oh, we've got a few tables to make, so we might get a slightly better sander or something to speed up a cutting process. But yeah, I mean, the single car sort of storage shed that we got when we first got it was just a massive pile of rubble and dust, and like the ceiling panels were like hanging down, and open it up and it just looked like no one looked in it for years, but it was $90 a week and it had running water and a toilet at the back, and we're like, okay. So we were super excited, and I think we spent at least 14 hours a day in there, just like clearing it out and stripping everything back, and patched everything up and repainted it, and used all the scrap wood that was there that we didn't take to the dump to like make a nice ceiling feature thing, as if we had spare time, and really got super amped. Yeah, gave everything a lick of paint and turned it into like I think the way I said, I remember thinking about it was like a New York loft style vibe, like rustic-y but clean, and it was really enjoyable to get there in the morning and be like, hey, we're here, this is now our job.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. And what was the feeling like when you had that little workshop and you started out? What was the feeling? Were you buzzing? Was every day did it flash by? Like, how was the feeling in that moment?
Yeah, probably hard to remember even what that feeling was like. To be honest, definitely positive all around. Was pretty naive probably as well, because it was just like everything was quite new. It was quite exciting. We're solving problems, but nothing was too major. I think also when you're that size and that small and such a fresh, cute little company, everyone's like extremely accommodating and nothing's an issue. yeah, even the long days. Actually, now I'm already recollecting. There were multiple times where we saw the sun come up because we were stressed about not getting the order ready for the person who was picking it up the following day.
Yep.
So we'd work through the entire night because things were taking longer than expected. You had a problem, whatever it might have been, and we're like, well, they're coming at 8 a.m. We're not going to call them, tell them they can't.
Yeah.
What's the big deal? We just hear a bit later, and a bit later turns into later and later, and then you're there till 4 a.m. and you sort of laugh it off, but definitely wears you down after a while.
Oh yeah, no, it really would. Where do you see Innate going in the future? Where do you see your progression and what? We'll start off with that. Where do you see yourselves going?
Okay, that's I guess like two extremes, going from the very beginning, which I don't think about often, all the way to the long-term goals and ambitions for Innate. I suppose always from the start we wanted to be an example of really doing something unique and special and different, particularly around sustainability and home health and supporting the local economy. So where we see Innate to go into the future is to expand into other product categories. And so we very much still focus on dining tables at the moment, but there are other areas that we have dabbled in and the other areas that we sometimes supply clients with that are not on our website. I guess doubling down on our focus on the raw materials. So like, when we started making tables, it was, okay, plywood, let's make sure we get untreated ply, or like maybe it's made in New Zealand ply, but then it's like, okay, well, let's get solid timber that's grown in New Zealand. Okay, that's good. And then you start looking further into that. And you're like, okay, well, where does that tree actually grow? And what does the impact of that tree have? So where we see Innate go is to be a hub for a range of different homeware materials that focuses very heavily on the raw material being sustainably sourced from within New Zealand, actually connecting it often even with artisans and manufacturers that already exist, designing beautiful products and then marketing those and making them easily available for New Zealanders.
Yep, no, that's perfect. And just, I think you're also tracing the footsteps of where that goes down to, so knowing where it's coming from, knowing how it's getting to you, knowing what goes into that product as well. The oils that you use and stuff like that is definitely what you're trying to focus on, making sure it's clean and it's from New Zealand, it's being put back into something. That's good.
Pretty much. I mean, for every single component, we try to dig down as far as we possibly can with where it's made. I guess steel is another great example. So like, when we use steel for steel frame tables, you can just go and buy steel from a local merchant and that's fine. They're often surprised if you ask like where the steel comes from, because like, it doesn't matter, it's the same grade, it's the same quality, don't worry about it. And we're like, no, but this is the reason why we ask. It's because just southwest of Auckland, there is a small town called Glenbrook, and there's a factory there, or a facility there called, that is NZ Steel, and they employ 2,000 people, and they have a very unique way that they take the black iron sands off the beach and extract the iron and put the sand back and contour it and plant trees there, and then they then make sheet metal sheets which are shipped around the country, and we can utilise those sheets to laser cut them or cut them and turn them into all sorts of different pieces of furniture. Knowing that journey and the 2,000 people that are employed there that it supports, even through to the finer details of like, the government pledged to invest, I think it's $130 million into NZ Steel to get an electric arc furnace there, which would significantly reduce the carbon emissions, not just of that facility, but for the entire country by 1%. Like that investment alone would change it. Knowing those types of details, it massively then changes. If you look at two pieces of steel, well, it either comes from somewhere overseas and you don't know where it comes from, what their processes were, who was involved with it, how far it had to go, or you know exactly where it came from. You literally can look up the people that are involved with it. You know that there's like literally government investment getting pushed into that specifically to improve the status of our environment. And so there's a direct personal, environmental, societal, economic impact for our local economy. It just goes on and on. You apply that same logic to every single component, then you end up with a product that has depth and soul and care.
Yeah. I like the fact you can also take something and it's not leaving an empty void for, so like taking the stuff out the sand to be able to obviously produce something from that, but then putting the sand back is a pretty amazing thing to be able to have business doing, especially. And it's not easy work as well as being in business myself, knowing that doing stuff like that is not always cost effective, but it's what's probably better for the planet and for businesses, for it being local area and being able to produce products for them.
And it's better for the planet, but it's I suppose for many years I've believed that even whether organisations care or not, things like these are happening more and more, not just because of legislation, but because of consumer demand. And as we live in a more transparent world and people can trace things more so, they're going to be able to look up all of these effects that I just mentioned, so that if they're doing things responsibly, then that gets recognised. And so that's definitely a big push for them to do that. So we're glad that happens, so that means we can more easily find those supply chains, because there's been a push for that. And just like with steel, the same as with timber, if you rip out a whole big forest, well, that was a tree that grew and that's nice, but if you leave the forest and selectively harvest, then you leave the forest intact. And so how have you left a place after you've extracted that raw material is an extremely important
It's important, to make sure everything keeps going forward in the best way. And it's also, I like that your business is doing that. Hopefully many more will do that as well, because it's leaving something for obviously the future. You know, like I've got kids, I don't know if you guys have got kids and all that, but it's good to know that there's something going to be left there for them. We're not just taking and leaving nothing. I like that mindset and like how that works. So that moves me on to my next question. What's your aim alongside of the business? What's your personal aim? Why did you start? Well, maybe not why you started in the first place, but why do you have that now? Why are you pushing forward for the future? Is there something that's outside of the business that you're doing it for? Or is it just to try and steady yourself so you've got, I don't know, a bit of income to buy a house, to relax a bit more, to be able to focus on other things?
Yeah.
If you could, open.
Definitely not for the income side of things. I mean, starting a business, at least in the earlier stages, you have to sacrifice your income, and you have to risk a lot, and maybe you have to go into debt. And I had a cushy, well-paying job before that, so it was definitely not for that. Pretty much since as far as I can remember thinking about the world, at least especially in a professional way, it's and professional overlaps with personal, because it's identifying that the world, I don't know, you know, when you're sort of 8 years old and you look at the world and you think, oh wow, the world's so big and grand and everything's amazing and everything's quite interesting, and it is, and you think, oh, adults have got it all sorted.
Very curious.
Very curious, and that's like an awesome characteristic to have. And then you get into whatever age it is for you, and then you realise, oh, there's all these problems and all these issues. At least this was my experience. And then just really surprised and being like, hold on, why do all these big organisations and countries and the way the world is, like, have all these major issues? And being like, it shouldn't be like that. It's unfair. It's unfair on the people that are unequally disadvantaged, or whether it's literally like animals that just get displaced, or whether it's our actual environment that we rely on for our well-being that we're like just not taking care of. It doesn't make sense. And so I guess there was the greater overarching passion in life is to try help improve some of those things. And in the world that we live in, the capitalist, luckily democratic world here that we live in offers you an opportunity to, within a business, to do something good and see that as a pretty strong force.
And during your journey through building this, how many years have you been going for?
6 now.
6 years. So from start to where you are now, has it been a rocky journey? Has it been quite smooth sailing? The ups and downs, was it easier the first couple of years? Is it harder now? Where do you stand in that?
It's definitely much easier now. Because we grew unexpectedly fast. The first couple of years were really difficult, because when you start describing growing really fast, people think like, oh wow, that sounds amazing. Like when we moved into that little workshop, it was only like 6 weeks in, and we got in there one day, we had to like climb over the furniture to get to the back, and like there was no space even there. So then we moved into a bigger workshop, and we got a contract with like a big nationwide retailer, and then we got a bunch of staff, and then next thing you know, we're sending hundreds of tables around the country, and you're like, wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But because it wasn't controlled, and because it was like, it was almost, well, it was all cut. I guess a lot of it was because of the rocky landscape that COVID created. We ended up sleeping even less than in the little workshop, and solving problems that now actually mattered a lot more because there were bigger problems to be solved. Not time to adjust and learn of things, so going through periods of doing a lot and not making any money. And so it's I think that rocky start from now out of this experience, I would encourage people to start slower and steady. A bit of healthy pressure is good, but yeah, that beginning was crazy. It probably did force us to learn a whole bunch of stuff that otherwise would take us a lot longer. And we've pivoted a lot since then, but now we're in a much more stable place.
It sounds like a bit of fine tuning, you know, like you're going along, and we've all had it. I had it myself. You want to try and offer so much, and then sometimes in offering so much you over offer, and you're like, hang on, I really need to, for the quality of product, I need to rate it back and try and work on that quality, and then be able to move forward and then offer that quality. And then every time you grow, you can grow at a pace where you can keep that quality standard consistently, because you've changed, or maybe the procedures you didn't have prior. I know coming into business, for me, it was sort of just get in a truck, get out there, you know, and get doing stuff, and very much for yourselves, build stuff, but then you weren't thinking of maybe there needs to be some procedures, some things put into place, some training, some all these things that come further down. So yeah, that I think that's a natural thing in business. There's going to be that little tuning of the business as it goes along. But yeah, no, it's fantastic that you guys have learnt that and moved on from that. It's nice to hear as well, 'cause for myself. But yeah, no, that's really good. Last question that we'll finish up on, and I won't take any more of your time up because you're obviously building quality products, and we want to keep you doing that. If you could change one thing in the world, what would that one thing be? And describe why as well. It would be great.
Make chemical laden and unhealthy processed food not exist. And make nice, healthy, fresh, local food readily available for everyone. So that's just the go-to. Yep.
Have you got any thoughts or ideas on how you would try and execute something like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's different versions of that, that different countries around the world do. Even Australia has a minor version of that. I don't think they pay GST on their fruit and vegetables. There's no reason why we should allow a lot of these foods to even be on the market and exist. You could start with a junk food tax. You could abolish specific chemicals that are put into food, or at least have more transparency. There's a whole bunch of quite simple regulations and policies that could actually take care of that. People just have to accept that they would then not be able to maybe eat that particular food that they sometimes really like.
No, awesome. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if you guys are looking for a piece of furniture, something that's a classy piece that isn't going to be mimicked in anybody's else home, then speak to the team at Innate, and they get you something designed up, whipped up, and it'll be sent out to you, and it'll be definitely a breath-stopping piece, that's for sure.